a lot of people in America view being a CEO as basically the pinnacle of life. Pretty much every high level person out there wants to own a business. You see athletes like Tom Brady, for example, retires and right away he wants to start a company. Or you'll see actors like, George Clooney or Ryan Reynolds, like they're getting out of acting and they want to start companies. Even like rappers, for example, you'll look at Kanye or Jay Z, they quit rapping to essentially be business owners. People just seem to put this whole like being a CEO thing up on this pedestal of sorts. And in this video today, I kind of want to debunk that a little bit and poke some holes in it because I think the perception that people have of it is really not. It really doesn't match reality in a lot of ways. So when I was a kid, I wanted to run a business. I always thought I'd look up to people like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, who ran these massive companies that kind of changed the world, and I thought that was cool. I thought it would be cool to be someone like him. But also, I was a kid. I didn't really understand how shit worked. But nowadays, I'm 30 years old. I do run my own business. I have for a while now, and I'm on calls with a lot of these, not Mark Zuckerberg type people, but I'm on calls with CEOs of like companies anywhere from like as low as $5 million a year to as high as like 30 to 50. I talk to people like that pretty much on a daily basis. I'm on a lot of meetings with them for client meetings, sales calls, whatever it is. And honestly, the lifestyle they live is pretty rough. I think that people tend to see the money, they hear about the compensation numbers on these CEOs. They'll see like, okay, nice houses, nice cars. They kind of see the material side of it, but not many people actually talk or see the inner workings of like what their day-to-day life is actually like, or what the numbers behind it look like. And I think that people could use a little bit of a harsh awakening to that because I can tell you from experience of just talking to a lot of people who are in this role and seeing what their day-to-day life is like. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. In fact, it's extremely difficult. It's extremely stressful, and it's definitely not for everyone. That's just the reality of it. I saw this quote from Elon Musk one time where he basically said, you know, when you're a CEO, when you run a business, your company, you are building a team to run the business for you. You hire employees to like do the work. And you as the CEO are really just operating at the highest of levels, guiding the ship. But, the employees are supposed to be doing the actual work. So eventually, when you build like a pretty large company, you get to a point where, you're not really involved in the day-to-day whatsoever. So that means, what are you actually doing? A lot of times what you're actually doing is the stuff that your people can't figure out. When you're facing issues that are just too difficult for your employees, your managers to deal with, that's where you got to step in. For example, I'll talk to clients of mine who are going through a lawsuit. They're getting sued by the FTC or they're getting sued by some client or something. And their employees can't deal with that. They can't handle that. Same with the managers. Usually the C-suite's got to step in to deal with all that type of shit. So that means like most of their time is caught up in solving difficult problems. The stuff that the people on the team cannot figure out, that's really what a CEO is doing a large amount of the time. So it's kind of like, I'll talk to clients of mine who are just doing that on calls all day long, 12-hour days, back to back to back to back to back. They're firing people, they're having difficult conversations. So, in a nutshell, it's not really like a fun lifestyle that the average CEO lives. And it's not something that I think most people would want to have, to be honest. And I do think there are much better routes that people can take. One of my kind of maxims of sorts is I really like the idea of lean, highly leveraged businesses. I don't have like tons of employees in my own company. I have a very small business. And I like the idea of having a company that is super lean. I don't really want to be the type of person who's managing like dozens of employees. Like in my long term, I would like maybe like 3 to 5 employees, all super talented, all super well paid. probably have a portion of equity in the company too, so they're really bought in. Um, but I do think these kind of like lean, highly leveraged businesses are really the future. If you look at like an e-commerce brand, for example, um, or even like a micro SaaS company, for example, um, whether you have, say, 100 customers or 100,000, you don't necessarily have to like scale the team to get to those numbers. What you do have to scale is things like ad spend. You have to spend more on ads. You have to spend more on inventory. You have to front more costs for that. So yes, your costs go up, but you don't necessarily have to say hire 100 additional people to scale your business like that. I think that's kind of the beauty of these lean, highly leveraged businesses. Same with software. If you're running like a software company, you don't necessarily have to hire tons of more people in order to scale your user base. In this case, it's much more leveraged. Or in a business I'm involved in is email newsletter companies. Whether your newsletter has 10,000 readers or 1 million, you're still just sending a newsletter. You have to get traffic into the newsletter, you have to get people to join, and then you just send the daily newsletter, and it has an offer in there, and you get X amount of eyeballs on the landing page. So I think that lean, highly leveraged businesses are the way forward. It's really where I want to go in the future because, I think that most people honestly aren't really cut out to like be a CEO. They aren't necessarily cut out to run like a massive company with 50 to 100, even more employees than that. Because honestly, it's difficult, it's stressful, it is a lot to bear at any given time. Whereas there are tons of options nowadays for businesses where, you can scale without having to hire additional people. You can scale without having to, add more work to your plate on a day-to-day basis. So that is one thing that I'm going to be really prioritizing in the future is working in businesses that are lean, highly leveraged, ideally to have some element of enterprise value to them so that they're actually a sellable asset. But that's a topic for another video. So hopefully this is helpful. It was a bit of a ramble, but let me know your thoughts in the comments.